Okay, great. Looks like we've got a good group online today. So thank you for joining our live session on digital teardowns conducting SWOT analysis in 2020. So a quick introduction. My name is Chloe Nichols and I'm a product marketing manager for the Digital Research Intelligence Solution. I'm joined here today with Jackie Lee, our head of publishers, who will show you an example of how to use Similarweb to conduct a SWOT analysis and use data and insights to help inform your digital strategy. So Jackie, over to you for a brief introduction.
Hello, thank you for joining us today. As Chloe graciously introduced, I am the new head of publishers at Similarweb. Really excited to be here with you, and hopefully we can have an interesting session today.
Excellent. Thank you, Jackie. And a quick overview of what we'll cover today. The session will be divided into 3 parts. Part 1, I will cover competitive research in the digital world and why it matters and what are the differences between traditional and digital methods of company research, and also those key benefits of conducting a digital research for your SWOT analysis. In part 2, Jackie will cover some of the examples of SWOT analysis using the Similarweb platform. And in part 3, I'll recap some of the helpful resources to get you started. Plus, we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end of the session. So let's dive straight into part 1, which is looking at competitive research in the digital world. So according to research by McKinsey & Co., 2020 accelerated business operations by 7 years, which really means it's a digital first world. The graph on the right shows how the digitization of business has jumped from 2019 into 2020 across a global scale, plus the breakdown within the different regions. So what does this mean for you? The bottom line is that if you don't understand what your competitors are doing online, then you're missing out on the full story when conducting your SWOT analysis. And so how do you start a SWOT analysis? So the first step is to outline clear objectives, such as outlining the key strategic questions that you want to analyze with your SWOT. For example, what can I learn from my competitors' strengths and weaknesses, and how does this impact my business? Secondly, you need to define your strategy and ensure you're allocating your resources efficiently. For example, are you going to launch an in-depth competitive analysis project analyzing various data sources? The third step is to focus on your priorities. Similar to the first step on outlining your objectives, at this stage, you need to outline within your SWOT where your focus is. Is it on financial, market growth, or operational improvements? Step 4, like any good research project, is to build a roadmap for execution with clear timelines, milestones, and goals to align your analysis with other key stakeholders. And finally, step 5 is to measure the results and the impact of your SWOT analysis. Jackie will go through these in more detail, especially around the steps of creating a SWOT analysis, but also looking at the data to help you validate and track your performance pre and post SWOT analysis. And in order to understand your position in the market, you need to know how your competitors are performing. So when doing a traditional competitive analysis, you're often gathering information from different sources. So for example, what you can learn about your competitors via their website, promotional materials, blog, and pricing lists. What they disclose to financial and economic filings. For example, listening to conference call earnings and any other business data that you can access via databases. Finally, what others are saying about your competitors via social media, in the news, review sites, analyst reports, and trade experts. And with the acceleration of the digital world, there is a fourth pillar, which is digital intelligence, which is using traffic and engagement data, audience insights, and conversion data to benchmark your digital performance and contextualize this to the industry and your competitive landscape. With this information, you can continuously track your company performance at a market level and understand the different dynamic shifts that are happening and be able to track over time what is changing within your industry, so that within your SWOT analysis, you can perform this year on a quarterly basis. It's going to look very different to what it looks like this year compared to next year. And in the digital world, the key to effectively understanding your company performance is to understand your position in the digital world, so you can make better decisions and forecast market changes, improve your audience reach, and understand your competitive landscape. And there's different ways that you can conduct research on your company. And today's session will focus on the first three: competitive analysis, SWOT analysis, and digital teardowns. But there are many other methods, such as conducting surveys with your customers, or focus groups, or even case study research, which all contribute to a holistic SWOT analysis strategy. And so what are the key benefits when you add the additional layer of digital intelligence to your competitive analysis? So firstly, you can grow your business and increase your digital presence. You can also analyze traffic and engagement data to monitor and track changes. You can use data and insights to make actionable recommendations for strategic planning. And ultimately, you can win your market by identifying potential threats and learning from your competitors' digital strategy to improve your own. So I'm really curious, for those that are online at the moment, what are the key challenges that you're facing when conducting competitive analysis? If you can see the poll there, feel free. Is it number one, determining the metrics that you should be measuring? Number two, choosing the right competitors to analyze? Number three, interpreting the data that you've collected? Or number four, turning those insights into actionable items? So we'll just give you a few moments to vote. Just waiting for those results to come through. Okay, here we go. So we've actually got the highest is actually turning those insights into action. So that is a great one, because I think from understanding the data, this is something that Jackie's going to go through, and she'll actually go through an example SWOT analysis and some of those actionable insights that you would take for the digital strategy. So look forward to that in part 2. Which brings me to Jackie. So I'm going to pass it over to Jackie, who will go through the SWOT analysis example using Similarweb.
Hi, everyone. It's great to meet you remotely, digitally. Before we dive into the actual example, I just want to take a minute to ground us on what SWOT analysis is and what it isn't. As a reminder, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are the things that companies can control and change. So this is within the walls of a company's building, back when we used to go into actual buildings. Opportunities and threats are those that are out of the control, out of the company, but that the company can exploit and defend against them if they've gone through some analysis so they can understand this. As an example, this would be like an industry level change that impacts all competitors within the space, or if it's something that an action a competitor is doing. That's sort of the difference between strengths, weaknesses, and then opportunities and threats. The example that we've got here is actually a digital teardown, and it's one discovery tool that companies can use to inform a more comprehensive SWOT analysis. It's not, I think, divergent from a SWOT. It is a key component. And as Chloe had mentioned earlier in the presentation, with the COVID environment in the last year, it's really accelerated, I think, this shift towards being digital first for most companies. Diving right in, can we go to the next slide, please? So what I'm going to take everyone through today is actually a real life example. We are going to be doing a digital teardown using CNN as our company. Hopefully it's something that folks here are familiar with, but it's a major media publisher in the news vertical based in the US, but it has a global reach. The competitors that we've chosen here are Fox News, New York Times, Washington Post, and USA Today. We're not going to necessarily go through this in the SWOT example, but the way in which we chose these competitors is actually a feature within Similarweb. So if you are interested in learning more about that, we can help show you how we can do that later on. The role in which I'll be playing here is that I'll be a business intelligence analyst within the data analytics team. My task today is to analyze the competitive landscape and make recommendations based on the SWOT analysis to grow our audience and find new revenue opportunities for the business. So what are the key questions that I want to answer today? First is, how is my company, CNN, performing relative to this competitive set? What can I learn from a competitor's digital strategy? And how can I use data to identify new growth opportunities? Later on in the presentation, we'll get at the idea of how we start to form actionable next steps using this data. So I'm really glad that that came up in the poll. Diving in, let's go right into our first strength. So what you'll see here is a screenshot that we've taken from our platform, and it is an insight that we have from our market quadrant analysis screen. What you can do within this is to map out your competitor landscape and understand your strengths relative to your competitors, plotted on a quadrant. What we chose here as our X and Y axes is monthly visits and monthly page views. As you can see from this screenshot, CNN is all the way over on the right-hand side, which is a really positive place to be. What this means is that CNN had the highest number of monthly page views. And as you can see in the data in the chart below, that CNN also had the highest number of unique visitors, which when you average that out, that means it's 5 to 6 days per month per user that is coming to CNN. If you think about this, this means that CNN is a habit for the broadest group of people. They've got high traffic numbers and they're top of mind, which is a great place to be. To the next slide, please. So moving on from strengths, what are some weaknesses that CNN can be looking at? This is something that's fully within their control. And what we've got here is a keyword gap screen. What Similarweb can do is that they can see which keywords, branded and non-branded, are sending more traffic to your site or your competitor sites. And this specifically highlights those keywords that are sending more traffic on average to Fox News, New York Times, Washington Post, or USA Today than CNN. What we did here is we pulled a list of the top 10 non-branded keywords where there might be a gap within CNN's content. CNN only received 1.7 million out of a total 13.6 million impressions from these 10 search terms in the last year. At a first glance, it looks like these topics are concentrated in sports and politics. And what this signals to me is that CNN has not necessarily optimized its sports and politics content for these specific non-branded search terms, as well as its competitors may have done in the last 12 months. We'll go into the actions that CNN can take to address this later on in the presentation, but I think this is something that we found that was really interesting as we were evaluating the company. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Moving on to opportunities. So this is looking at CNN relative to the larger industry. We pulled the demographics screen here as an example. And within demo, what you can do is learn more about the demographics of the visitors to your site as well as to your competitor's site. And what we've got here is a gender distribution and an age distribution. As you can see in the screen, CNN we know has had the highest number of monthly page views compared to its competitor. So it's great. It's got high overall site traffic. But one thing that you'll notice is that for the 25 to 45 age cohort, which we identify as millennials, CNN has the largest share of traffic from this group compared to its competitors. Now, if we take a step back and think about the overarching macro situation that's happening around the publisher industry, we know that millennials are on track to be larger than baby boomers, which historically has been the largest generational cohort that had money to spend in market. Millennials have, I think, overtaken baby boomers as that key target group, and it's an attractive demographic for advertisers today. By CNN being able to show this insight, they're able to prove that they've got the audience that advertisers are looking for without necessarily needing to rely on cookie-based behavioral data. As we all know, the industry is also heading for a cookieless future. And so having this insight is going to be helpful to CNN as they look to shore up this opportunity within the competitive set. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So now with any opportunity, it's also important to look at what could be threats to the business's position. What we've got here is a traffic and engagement screen. And what this looks at is the year-over-year growth in monthly visits. What this screen shows is that you can see how your competitors' traffic and engagement grew over time relative to your own growth. And what this is showing us is that CNN's year-over-year growth, while strong, CNN grew over 30%, in monthly visits and unique visitors, it actually lagged behind New York Times and Washington Post. In fact, New York Times growth in visit was nearly double that of CNN's. What this tells us is that when you're looking at the actual time graph, you can see spikes during periods like the US election, like COVID-19 when it first started happening in March and April of last year. And when you're looking at the social justice protest in the spring, you can see that the competition has capitalized on those hot topics in a more unique way and in a way that was more attractive to this competitive set shared customers than CNN's. What this says to us is that CNN is currently a broad habit for the broadest number of users, but there are competitors that are potentially encroaching on that territory, and it's something that CNN will need to monitor going forward. So moving on to the next slide, this is where we sort of bring the whole story together. For each strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat, we also will go through a potential action that the CNN team could take with this insight. So starting with strengths, we know that CNN has a large and loyal audience with the highest number of monthly page views and the highest number of unique visitors. What CNN can do going forward is to monitor these KPIs and make changes to content or coverage as needed so that they can protect their position of strength as a habit. Effectively, if they can determine what's not broken, let's not go trying to fix that. Moving on to weaknesses, we know that CNN has low search traffic from certain popular sports and politics keywords. What Similarweb can help CNN do is to actually optimize the keywords that CNN is using in its content to improve its rankings within organic search, and therefore increase their share of organic search traffic when people are searching for these broad terms. Within opportunities, we know that CNN has the largest traffic volume and highest share of traffic from millennials, which is huge. Since the millennials are such an attractive audience segment, CNN can start to use this insight when they are pitching to advertisers who are interested in reaching this cohort. It makes a stronger use case and will hopefully help them take advantage of this opportunity to increase their revenue share. And lastly, as a threat, we know that competition has grown faster, particularly around hot topics like COVID-19, social justice, and the US election. What CNN can start to do is to evaluate that competition and understand what it was about their coverage or about their site or about their formats, and make those adjustments so that they can hopefully, in the future, with future topics that arise, they can make changes to their own coverage model so they can start to hopefully grow as quickly as its customers do, or as its competitors do. With that, I'm going to hand this back off to Chloe to take everyone here through some of the resources that we might be able to provide to help you as you do your SWOT analysis.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. That was really insightful teardown, and thanks for sharing. I think we have a few questions, so we'll definitely take them at the end of part 3. And what we'll do is we'll take you through the theory that we've talked about and share with you how you can take the practical learning from this session so you can actually do your own SWOT analysis and digital teardown. So how can Similarweb help you with your digital teardown and gain a competitive advantage? Quite simply, we provide decision makers with the most reliable data, offering a 360-degree view of the digital world. Our platform provides insights across websites, apps, industries, and markets at a global scale to enable you to discover untapped opportunities into your business and for business growth. We can help you answer the following questions when you're doing a SWOT analysis, such as what is my company's strongest digital assets? In what areas do I lack expertise? Do we have a strong customer base? What do our competitors do better than us? How do my engagement metrics compare to my competitors? And is our target audience declining? So to help you get started straight away, we have useful SWOT analysis templates, which you can use as a framework for your digital teardown. We're going to share the deck and the recording after this session, so you can download the template. And this is a great starting point when you're actually planning out your SWOT analysis. And I have one final question for you. After seeing Jackie's in-depth SWOT analysis today in her teardown, would you be interested in scheduling a SWOT analysis for your company? So let us know via the poll, and we'll be in touch on how to schedule these sessions with our product experts. Of course, if the timing isn't right, then just let us know too. Great. We won't obviously share the results, but yeah, we're just really keen to understand whether it's something that you would like to do a bit of a deep dive, one-on-one personalized session based on you and your competitive set. Great. Thank you. And finally, here's a virtual goodie bag of all the relevant resources, templates, and guides that you can check out after today's session to learn more about SWOT analysis. Again, these links will be available when we send the deck and recording, so you can go check them out.